which is going to be on empowering physicians to change leaders. Ellen?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be back with you again this year. Last year when I stood before you, I mentioned that it was very energizing to be in a room of what I'm going to call happy warriors. That's what I said last time. When I was at this meeting last year, I was infused with an energy that literally carried me all year. This is a meeting of physicians who are dedicated to reclaiming medicine, and it's so inspiring to be amongst all of you. I would also like to thank Dr. Lee Gross and the boards of the Physicians Foundation, Doctors for Patient Care, and the DPC Action for again inviting me to be with you. William Shakespeare said, "This above all, to thine own self be true." If Shakespeare were to write a play about the demise of the great and noble profession of medicine, would he compose a tragedy or a comedy? As I have thought about this I have decided it could go either way. Shakespearean plays often feature characters disguising themselves as something they are not, usually in the form of hidden or mistaken identities. In Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed lovers are in disguise as they first meet at a grand masquerade party. Throughout the play, they are never permitted to be transparent about who they truly are, and their relationship must remain a secret. They are conflicted between loyalty to family and love of each other. The consequences, though, of this continued secrecy is their ultimate tragic demise. The art of the masquerade is center stage in medicine today. Physicians are being encouraged to play along with this game of identity charades. The rules of this game do not allow us to be fully transparent about who we are and what we do. In fact, our knowledge, skill, and experience is to be minimized, if not overtly denigrated. Physicians are no longer to be respected, revered, or even thanked, for that matter, but instead to be labeled as beleaguered, discontent, and burned out. We are expected to turn a blind eye to the legions of masqueraders, emphatically proclaiming their relevance as we are being told we can and will be replaced. We are pressured to acquiesce to the ultimate masquerade, where non-physicians are dressed up, donning the white coat, wearing the guise of doctor, and we are dressed down as merely providers. This recasting of our roles works to the benefit of administrators and bureaucrats as they continually churn the employment mills of healthcare delivery. The physician workers are often conflicted between their contractual duty to their employer and loyalty to their patients and profession. Healthcare today has been transformed into an assembly line of workers who are sanctioned by government to promote secrecy in all aspects of production. For instance, healthcare workers today dutifully gather and then transfer private medical information, so-called data, to third parties without the patient's knowledge or consent. This data collection is rewarded with bonuses by Medicare and third parties, which serves to propagate the conditioned response of conformity. Pavlov would be very impressed because even if these physicians are not rewarded with bonuses, they continue to perform as though they were. But the profession of medicine can no longer allow for secrecy or for masqueraders. Patients are deceived by those in medicine who prefer their identities to remain hidden, and this deception can have dire consequences. There are many elaborately adorned actors in medicine today, wearing the mask of patient, protector, and advocate. Pharmacy benefit managers claim to protect patients as their policies make insulin $500 a month, and diabetics are forced to leave their pharmacies without this life-saving medication. Politicians and bureaucrats devise and then pass laws that make the delivery of care much more expensive, non-transparent, and more difficult to access, as they claim their goal is to protect patients. An increasing number of non-physicians are portraying themselves as the authentic patient guardians as they sloganeer the platitude, mind of a doctor, heart of a nurse. Omnipresent lawyers claim they must protect patients who have been injured, but in doing so have created a malpractice system which is a cornucopia of frivolous claims. These attorneys reap a harvest of riches, reserving the lion's share of the financial reward for themselves. Insurance companies, whose very existence is predicated on protecting patients from extreme financial harm, have devised a convoluted scheme of networks and deductibles, which entraps patients into paying as much for their health insurance as they do for their mortgage. Insurance companies project a facade that their product gives true financial coverage and protection when they have made it impossible for most patients to utilize their product. Instead of seeing the facade, patients see a mirage of true protection. The illusion is that they have excellent Cadillac coverage, yet they pay enormous sums of money only to be denied services when needed. This Cadillac has turned out to be a money-guzzling junker for most Americans, and patients are not being protected, as is claimed, from financial ruin. I believe it is our duty to attempt to lay bare the secrets of those who offer only illusions and facades. Our patients are often unable to see through the disguise of these actors, and because of this, their actions go unchallenged. But this secrecy and deception is not only affecting our patients, it is affecting our colleagues and our profession. A bitter season of deep discontent has settled in over our beloved profession. This discontentment is being termed burnout, although Shakespeare may have described it as the winter of our discontent. I would like us to consider that burnout may be more of a season in medicine. These dreary conditions besetting our profession can change, like winter becoming spring. Burnout was not prevalent when my father and father-in-law were practicing, although they worked extremely hard. However, they were in control of their own professional fate. The profession of medicine, like all professions, have a subset within their ranks who suffer from major depression and other mental illness. If we examined everyone employed in what I'm going to call the medical administrative state, including hospital administrators, health IT executives, health insurance CEOs, and CMS bureaucrats, they too would have a subset of individuals who are depressed, have anxiety, and are dissatisfied with their job situation. So physicians are not unique in that some of us have also experienced these more serious problems. In his presentation, Broken Doctors, Broken Systems, Dr. Eric Levy points out that physician burnout appears to be more of a psychological phase, usually related to workplace stress, thereby having the potential to be modified, changed, and ultimately rectified. It is not a DSM-5 mental illness diagnosis, and we must not allow others, inside or outside of the House of Medicine, to conflate it as such. As we have all witnessed, physicians often put their own needs, their patients' needs, before their own. Even those doctors who are suffering personal and professional angst exhibit a diligence in assuring that the care of the patient does not suffer, even if they are. But if physicians do not put forth a serious effort to heal ourselves, I worry about what may happen. I have concerns about the increased medical legal implications of burnout. I worry that the masqueraders in medicine may use this against us by implying that fault is not with them. For instance, they will never concede that the use of the junky, clunky EHR has increased the rates of medical errors, but they may attempt to shift the fault to all those so-called burned-out doctors. I have real concerns about government, i.e. politicians, at some point deciding they need to solve this physician burnout issue by giving us what? More mandates and metrics to prove we are truly well. There exists a powerful potion, however, which could be the antidote to our discontentment, but it will require us to drink from the cup of physician autonomy. The key is for doctors to once again become the sole determiners of their professional fate. Just look to the physicians here today who have gleefully imbibed the intoxicant of physician autonomy. There is no burnout, and there is no discontentment. There is, though, a true love of this model of direct care, so much so that they are committed to share every aspect of it with you this weekend. That harkens back to a different time in medicine where doctors shared all things as collegial members of our great learned profession. That mindset differs significantly from the hyper-competitive model that predominates in medicine today. This hyper-competitive model is stoked by the medical administrative state in hopes of keeping us dormant, too weak to mount a meaningful response to their assaults on our profession, especially a response which would foster physician independence. Just being at this conference geared towards physician autonomy and patient protection would be considered by many in the administrative state to be disruptive. The term disruptive physician no longer refers to a physician who exhibits disturbing, unethical behavior. The term disruptive physician now means you and me and all of our independent colleagues. But what is the behavior that defines a so-called disruptive physician in medicine today? Would physicians be labeled as disruptive if we encroached upon the turf of the profiteers and corporatists, demanding price transparency for our patients and freedom from the indentured servitude to the EHR for ourselves? Would physicians be labeled as disruptive if we supported current legal action against the boards and showed up in legislatures around this country to demand that we be protected from the extortion racket called maintenance of certification? Would physicians be disruptive if we decided medicine is worth saving and stood against the things which denigrate our profession? But how would Shakespeare portray our physician disruptor? The one who would need to find the courage to be the unmasker and the revealer. See if any of these physician phenotypes sound familiar. Maybe you have encountered doctors like this, and maybe I was once a doctor like this. And I use he because all Shakespearean actors were men, even if they portrayed women. What a dreadful thing when you think about it. He might be portrayed as a hapless conformist who willingly complies with every rule or regulation that has ever been proposed, no matter how cumbersome or worthless. He is so busy trying for his MIPS bonus that he doesn't realize there is a better way, and because of his oblivion, the profession fades away. Maybe he is a doctor who is so weakened by the dictates of the administrative overlords that he has been rendered powerless to rise out of his dormant state. He knows something is wrong and claims to want a different path for his practice and his professional life, but he's just too afraid to act, and because of his fear, the profession is lost. Perhaps he would be a tragic figure who is desperately trying to save the profession, Yet time and time again, he is thwarted and ultimately betrayed by saboteurs who purport to be his colleague and claim to be his ally. My hope is he would be an independent, direct primary care doctor, one who has said, forget you to insurance companies, who has said, forget you to Medicare, and who has said, forget you to mega corporate pharmacies, but who has not forgotten his patients or his calling. The natural result of this direct relationship would be the revealing of those who were never necessary, but whose interference was allowed because they masqueraded as though they were. Perhaps the most famous soliloquy in all of Shakespeare's writings begins, to be or not to be. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them. Physicians in this country have thought it noble to suffer and endure the slings and arrows aimed at our profession. Many doctors have thought it beneath them to speak out and fight back against the things which denigrate our profession. This has resulted in the outrageous fortune which has befallen medicine. These outrages include our doctors' orders being promptly ignored the moment they are written, and our indentured labor to health IT doing 4 to 6 weeks of uncompensated work a year. This outrageous fortune also includes laws which prohibit physicians from making a fair profit, but encourage the masqueraders to use our skills to profiteer off of our patients. It is truly outrageous when insurance companies, mega corporate pharmacies, and so-called non-profit hospitals cunningly disguise their overpriced services as being benefits they provide to the patients. Politicians and administrators have allowed for the encroachment of individuals into our learned profession who have not acquired the extensive knowledge and skill that has been the standard for our profession. It is troubling that within this group of non-physicians, there is a growing chorus of individuals gallingly claiming that all that medical training doesn't really matter. Now that's truly outrageous. Should we continue to suffer the slings and arrows wielded by those who add nothing to the practice of medicine? These slings and arrows which continually increase the heights of the hurdles we must clear in order to get our patients what they need. Must we continue to endure the slings and arrows of regulations and rules placed on us by interferers who greatly increase the cost of health care, not by adding value, but by skimming off a sizable portion for themselves? Should we continue to support our specialty societies, societies who claim to be our shield against the unending barrage from the medical administrative state? Yet these same societies usually give up the fight when the incoming fire gets too intense, the political pressure builds, or their monetary interests are threatened. These bureaucratic bastions of organized medicine predictably acquiesce as they sheepishly acknowledge that they really are only capable of, quote, minimizing the damage. The damage, however, is never minimal. Our support should go to fearless, physician-centric organizations like Doctors for Patient Care and DPC Action. Or should we take arms against a sea of troubles? Physicians have a formidable armamentarium, an intellectual and knowledge-based arsenal that is fortified by our Hippocratic oath, which, once taken, forever places us as the true patient protectors. Our knowledge, skill, and experience forms our weaponry as we take arms against the sea of troubles. There is a truism about we physicians that often gets lost as we attempt to navigate these turbulent seas. It is the physician who possesses the knowledge. It is the physician who has the skill. That knowledge and skill is always with you. So where you go, it goes. It does not stay behind if you decide to get out of a situation which forces you to do things counter to your oath. All of your knowledge, your skill, and now your experience is yours, and it has enormous value. There is immense power in knowing that nothing in medicine can be done without us, and it is our knowledge and skill and training that makes that so. And by opposing, end them. Can we end these things by opposing them? If we begin to say the simple but very powerful word no, would that end the slings and arrows? If we said we're physicians and we don't do it that way to the outlandish regulations and perverse incentives of Medicare and insurance companies, would that change our outrageous fortune? If we commit to boldly promote the knowledge and skills of MDs and DOs, not to denigrate, but to educate, would we end the masquerade party? If we rose out of our dormant state to become defenders of the profession, would we project our real strength to all of those who dare to masquerade and interfere? Yes, I believe we would, but as individual doctors, above all, we must be true to ourselves. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus wrote, "We learn about ourselves taking one footstep at a time down a road of discovery. In searching for the truth, be ready for the unexpected." Our road of discovery must lead us to a place where physicians once again become the sole determiners of our professional fate, completely in charge of how our knowledge and skill will be used. And that can only be done by reclaiming our autonomy. Together, as a community, physicians must commit to stand in opposition to all that denigrates our profession. If we do what is right for the profession of medicine, everything else follows. Therefore, let us ask ourselves, to be or not to be, bold and unafraid, to be or not to be a defender of the profession, to be or not to be, that is the question. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you.